And
baby.
I just found a letter on my desk that said my license expires today,
Always a great birthday
which
present.
apparently has been here since December 16th.
Okay, I think we're
I'm-
streaming. So once Natalie starts recording, Ron, you can take it away.
I'm going to call the February 28th, 2022 meeting of the Amherst Planning Advisory Committee to order. And I would turn the meeting over to Mr. Fisher to introduce our guests and also the agenda for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight is part two of a working group to develop the engagement strategy for the Municipal Planning Strategy Renewal Project. And joining the committee tonight is members from Upland Planning and Design, Ryan McLean and Ian Watson. And unless there's any points of order or questions, I'll turn it over to them, who will take us through part two of the strategy development. Ryan?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thanks again, everybody, for taking some time today to join us to talk through the engagement strategy for the Amherst Plan Review. So really kind of the purpose of our meeting today, we're building off of kind of what we talked about in our last meeting. We kind of gathered some preliminary information, talked about some key questions, some target audiences, and then I have kind of compiled that information and put together an engagement strategy. So what we'll do today is we'll just go through that draft strategy together and discuss, fill in any gaps. I do have a couple of points within it that I'd like to kind of pass over to the group for a little discussion. We'll also take a quick peek at the branding options for the project that we've compiled and discuss any additional ways that we can enhance this work plan. So yeah, we'll get started and I'll start sharing my screen and show you what I got so far. Can everybody see that? Fantastic. I will make sure that the size is good for everyone. You can read it okay? Okay,
Yep.
great. So this is the draft document. I will just kind of scroll through it. We'll kind of focus in on a few particular parts, mainly the activities section, kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of the engagement. So first, this first section just kind of lays out what's the approach, what are objectives with this engagement, and really, it's always about creating a meaningful engagement process, and asking questions that we really want, authentic answers to from the community that'll really help us to ensure that this plan review is, works for the community moving forward. So, it's about sharing information about existing conditions and key planning issues with community members, mobilizing the project team, so you folks, and as well as community partners to promote and share the engagement sessions, and also keep the community informed about this process and the timelines. Really, this engagement process is about gathering input, learning about values, preferences, concerns, solutions that will help to answer some of the questions that we've come up with. And inform decision-making as we go through this. And another big part of it is to foster trust in the intentions of planning regulations and a respect for kind of long-term community vision. So that's a big part of, throughout the engagement process, we'll kind of go through this initial consultation phase, and then we'll do a what we heard report that will be a public-facing document that goes back to the public to kind of say, here's what we heard from you. And it's a really great opportunity for folks to kind of see themselves reflected back in the process and to ensure that we really have kind of captured that meaningful input moving forward. So the document also just, lays out who the core team working on the project is. The working group would be yourselves, the Planning Advisory Committee. And really your role is to provide advice to the project team throughout this process, as well as kind of promoting the engagement, connecting us with stakeholders, and helping to start conversations in the community. We're also really hopeful that you'll participate in a lot of the engagement opportunities that come up as well. So here's that list of target audiences that we came up with last meeting, and kind of break it down here. So, looking at each target audience, it's important to kind of reflect on why do we engage that specific audience, and then what activities are we going to use to engage those folks, as well as kind of identifying some key stakeholders. So thank you to everybody who added to that stakeholder list so far. It looks really good. So I really appreciate that. So we, with the youth, we're interested in kind of, hearing a bit about what the youth have to say about this process. This is going to be their community that in a few years that, they're the ones who are going to be the future leaders. So yeah, we've got stakeholder interviews. We've identified the Youth Town Council, the YMCA, and Cumberland Partners who could participate in that process. Seniors as well were another group target audience that we want to engage. And again, we've got stakeholders there with the Amherst 50 Plus Club. Newcomers and immigrants was a group that now I did see that someone added to the stakeholder list since I wrote this document, and added the Multicultural Association, I believe. I'm just curious from the group if you have any other recommendations for, or if there's any other community groups that kind of focus on, welcoming newcomers to Amherst, and if so, if we could get those into the stakeholder list as well. Any thoughts there?
I think does the YMCA have a program? Does anybody know anything about that?
Yeah, I was going to say YMCA too, but I couldn't find my hand.
Okay. Do they have like a Y-Reach program or at that YMCA, do you know? Or
I
okay,
think that's what it's called. Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yes, that's what it is.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
And we have
Through,
a senior care coordinator too.
okay. So
Senior
we'll add
safety
that.
coordinator
Senior safety coordinator.
for seniors.
Great.
Back to the newcomers, would the Rotary Club, I'm just throwing it out there, I'm not sure, would that be a fit? Given their international involvement?
Yeah, I think so, Hal. And along with that, there were partners in the immigration program 5 or 6 years ago.
Mhm.
There was the First Baptist Church, and also Holy Family Parish had committees that partnered with Rotary to sponsor the immigrant families. And also there's been some informal follow-up by members of that committee. And I think that's certainly an opportunity to get some feedback from them.
Excellent.
I think we actually did add them late this afternoon.
Okay, perfect. Great. Wonderful. We're filling out that list. Great. For low-income households, we identified the Poverty Reduction Committee, the United Way of Cumberland, and Maggie's Place as good stakeholders to engage with in that process. And like I said, with the engagement activities, like the public survey, the social pinpoint, we'll get a little more in depth into those actual activities shortly. Renters, we're hoping to kind of capture through the public survey and the social pinpoint. Like that'll be kind of as we kind of reach out to the broader public. I don't know if there's any kind of specific stakeholder groups that focus on renters in the community, but if so, again, please do let me know. We also talked about particular, like targeting some landowner outreach in some of the areas where, we'd like to know kind of, what's preventing people from potentially developing certain areas. So we'll do some targeted engagement with some landowners, but then we'll also get some additional information through the public survey and kind of through engaging with the general public as well. We also talked about targeting BIPOC community members. And so on the stakeholder list, there was the Inclusion, Diversity and Equity Committee, as well as the Cumberland African Nova Scotian Association. And I'm curious if there are any other groups that you feel we should be engaging with, or if we've got a pretty comprehensive list.
What about Indigenous Services Canada?
Indigenous Services Canada.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering about just other levels of government or in the neighboring municipality as well.
Mhm. Then we also talked
The
about,
multicultural,
oh, sorry,
when
go
we
ahead.
had mentioned the Multicultural Society earlier, they might have a fit in there as well.
Yep, absolutely. Great. We also talked about engaging with community members with disabilities. So we determined that there's the Amherst Inclusion Society as well as the Bridge Adult Services Society. So those would be stakeholder interviews likely for that. Any other groups that we're missing from that community?
We also have an accessibility committee.
Accessibility Committee. Excellent.
That was a late addition to your list, Ryan.
Yep, no worries.
Yep.
That's why it's a draft. We're still building it together. And then the last group there is business owners. So, you know, with commercial activity being kind of a key issue, it can be hard for some business owners to participate in these processes sometimes. So we're going to do stakeholder interviews as well. We've identified the Amherst Chamber of Commerce, Cumberland Business Connector, and CBDC Cumberland as well. Any other groups that you think we're missing from that list?
What about athletic groups? It's a big sports community and I don't really see them represented there anywhere.
So kind of more recreation focus for a target audience, kind of add.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed when I was going through the town website that you do have, you know, get like an active community living coordinator, I believe, and a fair number of kind of encouraging folks to engage more in kind of, you know, more physical activity, which is great.
Also in that vein, I think a part of the list that I sent in, we have an extremely active, they're not a formal group, but a very extremely active running group, which incorporates everything from walking to marathon runners. And they've been very active with one particular individual who's been very active in the promotion of our trail system.
Awesome.
They're called the Amherst Striders.
I think they did make the list. I think they're on the stakeholder list there. So that's great.
Okay.
Awesome.
I noticed that you have like renters and you have business owners, but there's not a particular category for homeowners. And like the consultation we've had there recently was the homeowners that are particularly concerned about new developments and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So homeowners are definitely a kind of a demographic within the population that we tend to hear a lot from anyway. So we'll capture that information through the public survey. We'll be asking people about, you know, their housing situation. But usually through this kind of engagement, you automatically kind of include a lot of the homeowners' perspectives in the conversation. So with the target audiences, we tend to kind of try to look at, you know, whose voices might we not necessarily hear from, and how can we ensure that we're going to hear from those populations. So the next little piece of the engagement strategy is developing a project brand identity. So we have 3 options that have been kind of designed, and we'd just love to kind of hear from you folks about, you know, your preferred option, perhaps. So I'm just going to switch documents here quickly. Can you see that new document? A-okay. Says Plan
Yes.
Amherst Project Identity. Perfect. Ian, you want to go ahead? I feel like you've unmuted yourself.
Oh, I was just going to say that, yeah, so the intent of this brand basically is, you know, Plan Amherst, the tag that the project will be known under, and we can use that for the project website and everything. And then, you know, the logo and the colors and all of that kind of thing is what will be the consistent theme among our advertising materials and our PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff to tie it all together in the public mind.
then the designer who we work with for these kinds of branding exercises pulls a lot from kind of your existing branding for the town and gets his inspiration locally. So yeah, he's kind of, he works out a bit of a rationale for kind of how he comes up with his different designs and where he kind of pulls the colors from as well. So this is
So
the first, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ryan. So I can't recall if I provided you with our branding materials. Have I done that? Okay, you're nodding your head.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe
Okay.
we do have that stuff. And so, yeah, he's kind of pulled from those branding materials
Perfect.
to kind of to create a project brand. So this is the first concept that he's come up with. He always puts them on a tote bag, which I find kind of hilarious because it's not as if we're, doling out tote bags to everyone for this project, but a good way of kind of seeing what it can look like. Then we've got concept 2, which is this one here. And then this is the third concept that he's come up with. So I'm curious if people want to maybe potentially even just put in the chat what your preferred option of those 3. So again, concept 1, concept 2, or sorry, the last one was concept 3, concept 2, and then concept 1 is this one here.
Ryan, are you able to provide some background to each one of the graphics? So we have a better understanding of the concept?
Of kind of where he's coming, like the design rationale?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, here's this image here kind of shows where that initial, like for concept 1, for instance, where he kind of pulled that imaging from. So really, it's about this, Amherst is really this, this convergence, this center, this local regional center. And so he's really kind of pulling off of that idea of it being this kind of, with the arrows, for instance, pointing to the center. It's really kind of just, highlighting Amherst's position as, this regional service center. So that's kind of the gist of where his kind of 3 ideas came from. So yeah, if anyone, has any feelings one way or the other, feel free to kind of put them in the chat, but we won't spend too much time dwelling on this one, I don't think. But are there any kind of initial thoughts or comments that anyone would like to make about that?
Well, it kind of reminded me of the windmills.
I like 1 the best.
You like 1 the best?
Funny.
Of course you do.
And it reminds me of the windmills as well.
Read the chat, Kim.
Interesting.
I
So again,
like 1 as well.
Yeah.
We also have a 6-way stop in Amherst. When I first saw that graphic, I thought that's what it was, but then I counted.
Did you mean the future roundabout, Leon?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Right.
So again, I'll just quickly, 1, 2 is this one with the arrows kind of pointing to the center there. And then the third one is the arrows with the point in the middle. So yeah, just feel free to pop those answers in the chat and we'll collect all your thoughts. All right, let us move into the meat and potatoes. So a little bit, sorry, go ahead. Another question?
Nothing. I was just going to say it's a little too close to supper time for that kind of analogy, but
Yeah,
please,
sorry.
go ahead.
I will save my food comments. All right, so just a little overview of kind of the whole engagement process and a bit around the timelines. So the engagement activities will take place for this project over 4 phases. The first phase will be the launch, which will be this coming month. So with that will be kind of the launch of the project brand, the website. We'll develop some communications material, and on the website, there's a capability for people to sign up for e-list subscription so they can, be kept up to date with engagement activities. And anytime there's a document that's available for public consumption, all of those things, we keep everyone updated throughout the process. There'll also be a press release. We've already got the stakeholder list is really coming along, so we just have a few little tweaks to add to that. And then we'll do a launch email to kind of introduce the project to stakeholders as well. There'll be some promotion by the municipality, both through kind of social media and other local media sources. And then there'll also be, I'm putting together an engagement manual, which is going to be a tool that the municipality can use to kind of talk about the project for any other kind of interested groups who need to kind of want to learn more about it. So it'll be kind of like just a little package for engagement for this project. Phase 2 is kind of the bulk of the engagement. So that's really that gathering public input piece. And that'll take place from March until June. And we'll I won't go through this list right away because we're going to go through those activities in more detail very shortly. And then phase 3, which will be PAC and council engagements. So again, there'll be kind of touch points throughout the project where the project team will be kind of engaging with you folks and with other members of council to identify, kind of drill more into detail into some of the issues affecting citizens in Amherst. And then there'll be a mid-draft update as well to council and PAC kind of in the middle of the drafting phase also. And then in early 2023, January, we'll be doing the draft plan feedback. So once we've got the draft documents, we will be sharing those drafts publicly. We'll do an online presentation and Q&A, which we find really helpful because it allows people we can record those sessions and allows people to be able to kind of go back and learn a little bit more about kind of the rationale behind the plan. And then we'll also do some draft feedback as well through an open house. And we'll also update the social pinpoint map, which I'll talk a little bit about shortly. So phase 1 is really this big public launch piece. So really, the guiding questions for this: how can we best involve the community throughout the process? How do town residents want to be engaged? And what key information about the project do we really need the public to understand? Sometimes with these projects, the public education piece can be really important to let people know kind of what there is control over in this process and what kind of falls into other jurisdictions. So there's always kind of a bit of a public education piece with these projects as well. So we'll have that stakeholder list, mailing list, and community and stakeholder awareness are kind of the big outcomes from this stage. And there's a number of kind of key materials that we've already discussed a bit there. That will help guide us through that process. So phase 2, I won't say it again because everyone's hungry. So this is kind of the big piece of work. So this is really, where we're seeking that big piece of the public input. So really asking people to reflect on where the town's been, how it's changed, and then looking into the future. And also kind of, what are the things that they love about living in Amherst, and what can we do to make it an even better place to live? What are some of the challenges that people are facing? And then also, we talked about it in the last meeting that we want to know what attracted new residents to Amherst in the last couple of years, and what might we be able to do to attract more people? And what about, retaining those people over the long term? Other questions we're going to seek to address are, what are the major topics that people want to see this planning process address? Housing is going to be one that comes up often, as it does in all of our planning projects. Another one is, focusing around encouraging business development and how that development should take place. And then, as we talked about in our last meeting, how can we encourage more active transportation and a more walkable community in Amherst as well? And then kind of throughout, we're always looking at, how can we continue to involve the community through this process? And what about after this process is over? How do we continue to keep people engaged in this conversations around civic life? So big outcomes from this section will be that what we heard report, which is again, that summary of all the consultation feedback that we've heard in this initial phase, and, you know, reflecting that back to folks. So these are just a little bit more about what the activities that we're going to engage in. So, you know, a big piece of any project like this is communications, which is an ongoing piece of the puzzle. So this will be kind of throughout the project. It'll be regular email updates, website updates. There'll be kind of continued promotion as the different engagement activities come up. So that'll be something that just happens throughout the project. One of the activities that we're going to use in this process is called Social Pinpoint, which is a really cool online interactive map. So it will be available through the project website, which allows people to kind of go on and leave geo-referenced markers and comments, as well as engage with comments from other folks left by other members of the community. So people can upvote comments, they can downvote comments, and it's just a great way to kind of see, it allows people to kind of share their thoughts on the town, but it also allows them to see how other people feel as well, which is an important part of this process as well, to kind of, you know, bring that conversation to the whole community. So I can just quickly, I will pull up quickly. I'll just show you an example of kind of what this looks like. So this is what the Social Pinpoint interactive mapping platform looks like. So you can kind of add these sidebar tabs that, you know, we could have one that's around, you know, that's got the existing zoning map, for instance, and then it overlays that onto the map and people can make comments relating to zoning. Then there can be one that's just a satellite image that asks people to leave comments about, you know, their favorite places, what they love about Amherst, maybe places where they see opportunities for the future. So it's a really cool platform. We have a lot of success with it, specifically with places around the size of Amherst. Smaller communities tend to engage really well with this tool. It's also a great option because folks can just hop on at their convenience, as opposed to, you know, having to attend a specific time to provide that kind of map-based feedback, which is something that, you know, happens. You know, in a lot of cases, we sit around tables with maps, which is great, but COVID has kind of changed that quite a bit. Yeah, so that's Social Pinpoint. Then the next big one is going to be this public survey. So this is going to ask about various aspects of life in the town and where residents see opportunities for change. It's going to focus on planning related issues, but it'll also refer to the guiding questions that we determined in the last engagement strategy workshop. So yeah, we'll be able to kind of compile a lot of information about various different aspects of life, which will be very helpful for developing the draft documents. The next big piece of work is stakeholder interviews. So again, thank you for all of your input on that stakeholder list. So we'll be conducting interviews. Oftentimes they're done by phone. Sometimes we do them by Zoom, you know, in person when possible as well. And they're usually around an hour for each conversation. And we interview folks about the interests that they specifically represent. And then also talk about kind of their priorities and hopes for this, this plan review. So again, like interview questions tend to vary depending on, you know, the group, the target audience that we're reaching. So I've underlined this creative engagements piece because this is one that we haven't completely drilled down and like finalized yet. So creative engagements are a great way for us to kind of think of, okay, we've got these online methods, we're going to do some in-person workshops, but how might we engage people in this process? Kind of oftentimes they're more fun or, you know, just simple ways for people to, you know, respond to a specific question or, you know, just to engage with this process. So, you know, sometimes there's folks who are not internet users or don't necessarily have the ability or the time to participate in the in-person sessions. So it's good to have these different options. So examples of things that we've done in the past include, we've designed postcards, and sometimes like we'll ask one question on those postcards. They also serve as a really nice kind of takeaway, almost like a little flyer that has the project website where all those engagement activities live as well. So it's a nice kind of, tangible thing that people can take with them through from different events. And, we can have them at the library, have them at town hall, things like that. So that's one example. We've also in the past, we've done storefront installations in, underutilized spaces. Sometimes we'll put up, display to kind of build awareness about the project in a key area. We've also done take-home activity packages, and that's actually been something that has been very successful throughout COVID. Just kind of creating these simple, oftentimes we'll make them as fillable PDFs. That can be printed off, but they just provide kind of a bit of a workbook with some activities and some guiding questions for people to take some time to reflect and respond to. Sometimes there's, mapping activities with that as well, which is another way to engage people who maybe don't necessarily, maybe they're not super computer literate and they don't want to use the social pinpoint, but they might draw on a map. A workbook like that, a take-home activity packet, can be really helpful for, allowing those people to engage in that way as well. Other options are things like, sometimes we've done photo voice, which is kind of asking people to submit photos and kind of creating it could be a page on the website that, asks them to kind of share their favorite places or just things, another way for people to kind of engage in the process that is a little bit more fun and less, it's a bit more creative, really. And then another option that we've done in the past is something called a written photo or video booth, where usually you ask a targeted question and then people can submit, video responses, written responses, or photo responses to that question as well. And then again, it can be a page on the website that just kind of puts all of that together and gives people a, something nice to look at and a way to kind of look at this process in a different way. So I'm curious from your perspective, if, any of those options kind of stand out to you as things that you think would work in Amherst, or if you have any other thoughts about possible creative engagements that we might want to consider.
Well, I think you're going to have a combination.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this project, we can do 2 different creative engagements as we have in the budget. So.
Okay.
One of the items that I'm concerned with any type of research is overloading with individuals or groups that tend to be a little bit more vocal than others.
Yeah.
And are more numerous. And it sounds like there may be more of an issue because there's more people speaking as opposed to the people who are more silent. And one of the things I think that we have to be very cognizant of is all of our groups and organizations, and how representative are they? For example, I'm curious with some of our groups, what is their actual makeup? Do they actually represent, to what degree do they actually represent the people they claim to represent? So whatever we choose there, I just think that, and I like some of the creative stuff. If I think, you have a lot of small business owners that may not be part of either the chamber or the business connector. How do we approach them? How do we reach out to them? And there's some pretty simple ways of getting at those individuals, obviously, like physically dropping things off in their stores and that type of thing. But I just want to make sure that the data that we collect, for lack of a better term, is statistically significant in terms of its. I don't want to get into research methodology.
Yeah, no, I understand.
That's where I was going.
Totally. No,
I got a C in my third year research.
Yes, research methods are not always the most fun thing to talk about, but I personally find them very interesting, and I love this part of my work. And so part of what we do with the public survey is we do ask a series of demographic questions as well, so that we can also get a picture and I can analyze those results as we go, you know, at any point and kind of say, which groups, who are we meeting? Like, who are we actually engaging with and who are we not hearing from? And that way we can actually kind of devote some of our resources towards trying to target those specific audiences and making sure that, you know, we can cross-check things against Stats Canada data to see, are we getting a representative sample of the population? One of the things I always do in the What We Heard report is identify the ways in which, you know, certain voices sometimes are overrepresented within the survey results. So sometimes you'll get, you know, higher income folks and you won't hear as much from lower income folks. And so, you know, through the process, we try our best to kind of see those gaps as we're going, so we can continue to do that outreach to make sure that those voices are being included and at least being invited to participate in the process. But it does help to kind of have that data to cross-check, to kind of say, are we actually reaching, you know, a representative sample of the population of Amherst?
Thank you.
Welcome. Kim, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, the one that I like that stuck out to me was the take-home packages. I know if this was timed around, you know, when property bills or water bills went out, there's a significant number of people that actually come into town hall to old school pay their bill in person that may not be Facebook and tech savvy and may not go out in the evening to a meeting. And I really think that you would capture a good group of people that way. They could do it on their own terms and send it in, but there is a fair amount of traffic when bills are due at the front counter that you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity as well to have some paper copies of that survey available as well. So that those kind of take home, you know, that take home packet, the print version could, you know, have access to that survey as well. And then people can fill them out and they can either mail them back in or they can drop them back off. And then we can input them manually afterwards.
I'm just wondering too, if we're looking at reaching out to some of the broader sections and demographics in the community, other than the actual stakeholders groups, our promotion from the outset within the community to draw in the individuals who might not necessarily be participants in any of the stakeholder groups that have been identified. Typically, there seems to be, like with many of the stakeholders groups, they have a knowledge of what the program is, but the rank and file members of the community may not really have a full understanding of what we're trying to do. And if there's some way that we can continue to present them, that's where our brand comes in, I see, as getting the brand out there so that there is a familiarity with the broader community as to what's going on. And if there's some way that we can reach out to them and maybe draw them in, as has been suggested through mailouts and whatnot, but at least they recognize the brand and know what, you know, have a sense of what's going on.
Yep, absolutely.
One thought that just comes to mind, maybe with the brand, we could place it on some of the town vehicles, some of the works departments, because they are certainly, there's a certain opportunity there to have them, they travel throughout the community on a daily basis. And if you can get the brand out into the community, wherever in the town, I think there's a benefit to that. You're going to have people that are going to be more engaged in the process and have an opportunity to have something to say.
Great, thank you for that.
To your point, Ron, we we've had some sticker campaigns. The sticker campaigns have been pretty popular during COVID.
Yep.
And I'm just, as soon as you mentioned about the vehicles, I was just thinking about some of the stickers that we have out there with the town of Amherst. And
Yeah.
maybe branding stickers that people want to promote it.
Yep, that's certainly an option. Jason, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. I like all this. I don't know if I want to say this out loud or not, because I think it makes me sad. But as far as engaging people, I'm trying to think of where most people are. And I think a couple of the places where most people are, everyone has to get groceries. And there's really 3 places to get groceries in town. And I don't know how we would engage them there. And the other thing are drive-throughs. I'm sure that the busiest places in town are McDonald's and Tim Hortons drive-throughs. And I thought of that because I thought if you ask people at the track what they like to do in their spare time, the walking track at the stadium, they're going to say, I like to walk. And then 99% of the residents in Amherst walk. If you ask people at the drive-through, although there will be, a lot of the same people will get a coffee and go for a walk or what have you, but you'd also get an additional demographic that may not, because it's probably more of a representation of the entire town. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there because and it's probably not going to happen here, but maybe sometime in the future we could figure out as planners like how to engage some of our businesses to help get the message out or get feedback or what have you.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. I don't even have the concept in my head correct, but yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, I find one of the things that we do is, oftentimes around the time of the project launch is, we'll do a poster campaign and try to get posters out to some of those kind of key community spots so that there is that kind of brand awareness out there and people start to see it. And, you don't want to fill it with too much information, but to kind of get that brand out there, get the fact that the project is happening out there. And then again, like with any kind of local media sources that we can also kind of tap into through this process and try to get them, on board with this and interested. That's a great opportunity for us to kind of, again, build this project awareness.
I agree. And I think, unfortunately, we're probably our own biggest media outlet.
Yeah.
Locally, they seem to have dried up or they don't pick things up. And we have a very good following on our Facebook because really that's the only place to get information a lot of the time. So we could not,
You're not the only municipality that is the case.
Okay, good.
Any other thoughts? Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bernie.
I had a similar thought as Jason there in terms of reaching out to people, but I was thinking, is there value in reaching out to tourists and short-term visitors? Is that part of the group that you're trying to get feedback from? And that's where I was thinking, like how you'd reach them in terms of trying to get their attention. And even if it's a very short survey response or something like that in terms of what they see as the town has or doesn't have or should have or that they'd like to see or something like that. Particularly where we're trying to create a town that attracts people to visit and stay.
Yeah, I mean, that could potentially be unfortunately, it's kind of hard unless you're doing a full kind of summer engagement that's, focused around a specific kind of, a trail or an active transportation network or things like that. Oftentimes the methodology that we would use for those kinds of, to get that kind of information is intercept surveying, where we actually just hang out in a busy spot and stop people and talk to them and ask for their input. So I'm not sure how, I don't necessarily think that that's within the scope of this project necessarily, but I do think that there is potentially information to pull from, local business owners or folks who are associated with organizations that do offer tourism, to kind of get a bit of information from them about what they hear from the folks who frequent their businesses or, use their services.
Right.
Leon, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah. What about like an active engagement strategy with the stakeholders? So as to Jason's point, we're sort of a central platform for social media sharing. And I think also to Hal's point, there are a lot of the same voices being heard on that platform. But what if we were to engage the stakeholder list and got them to share from their socials as well?
Absolutely.
Or to even help us target audiences that we aren't thinking of.
Yeah.
Once we have information from the stakeholder list, we could actually get them to actively participate in the engagement strategy.
Absolutely. Getting the word out through there, really it's about kind of tapping into all these different networks to get the
Right.
word spread as far and wide as possible and as many different kind of communities and groups throughout the town. So that's definitely something that, when we build the stakeholder list, we often kind of send out an initial email to kind of let people know about the project, give them a bit of information. But it is also something that through those stakeholder engagements, we can continue to encourage those groups to really share and promote this process as well. Sometimes also it's a bit of an iterative process where when you're engaging with a stakeholder and they say, oh, well, have you spoken to so-and-so? And sometimes the list kind of continues to build a little bit from there, which, is really helpful, kind of learning who those key informants are within the community is always really beneficial. Any other thoughts from folks about the creative engagements? Hal, go ahead.
Just one more, hopefully it's one more. It's reminding me that we should also be asking the town staff, because the town staff are engaging on a regular basis with and when I say town staff, we're talking like all town staff, because we're face to face, or the staff are face to face with the public on a regular basis. Public Works, police, fire, and they're a little bit of a check and balance, I think, on the realities of some of the issues that individuals are facing. If we look at issues, or people's living conditions, if you're looking at the police and how they're dealing with people, and they're witnessing living conditions, or witnessing certain behaviors and that type of thing. So I don't think we should forget about the town staff.
Yep, absolutely. Andrew, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, I was just looking at the time, so I didn't want to get off track too far, but I just wanted to get your opinion, Ryan. What if you had to pick, if you were to pick, like, what was the favorite creative engagement that you've done in another location for this type of thing? What was it?
So for these, I would say my top two picks for this would be the postcards tend to be really good because it is a tangible thing that people can, it kind of serves a double purpose. So those tend to be really helpful. And then also those take-home activity packages, as being kind of that another way for people to engage in kind of a more like analog way, but also to design it in such a way where it can be done digitally as well, for folks who want to do it that way. So those are kind of the two that I have found the most success with, and you actually get the most kind of like some real like tangible information from them as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I like that too. I like the, and if you can't, I at least personally, I tend to respond to a simple message, and I'm not saying this is what it is, but Plan Amherst, maybe something a little bit attention grabbing that makes you go to the website and, find out more. I like that. And it's sort of the same, consistent across multiple, formats and media.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts there before we move along? We got 10 minutes left. I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing pretty good. All right. So the next activity that we've got planned are to do in-person workshops. What a novelty, go figure. So our plan is to do 2 in-person workshops with the community to focus kind of more in depth on the topics that matter to folks in the community. So specific topics for those will be selected based off of an analysis from the preliminary survey results. So when we start kind of hearing what are these major issues, we'll tailor the in-person workshops to kind of deal more with those issues that are coming up consistently across through the public survey. And then in addition to that, we like to always offer an online option for folks who either don't feel comfortable going out in public still. Also, online workshops are a really great opportunity to be able to provide some, a bit of a presentation to folks and record it. That it's another thing that can kind of go up on the website for other folks to be able to access at any point. So this would just be an online Zoom workshop for folks who couldn't attend any of the in-person workshops. And again, it would be drilling into those details a little bit more. And then in June, we'll have the What We Heard report. So I'll put a summary together of all the information that we heard through the initial consultation phase. And that'll be posted on the website for folks to read. We try to keep them short and sweet and to the point so that, we're not giving people some 40-page document to read. And then they're always, they have, statistics and some graphs and things like that in them as well, so that folks can kind of see the information depicted, not just in words, but also visually. And then we already kind of walked through that phase 3. That'll be kind of these touch points with the project team throughout with council and the PAC as we kind of go through the process together. And then we'll be into that draft plan review early in 2023. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of her. Any comments, anything you think we could be doing to enhance this work plan? Do you think we've got a pretty good strategy here? Yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
I was just going to say, can we, because we didn't have a draft copy to review prior to the meeting, can we have something that we can go through and might be easier to kind of format some ideas or core places that have holes in it, sitting and reading it?
Yeah, I can send the draft out for folks to take a look at more closely themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you do have any comments, it would be great if you could get those to me by the end of the week so that I can finalize the strategy, and then we'll get going with the launch and things will, because March is here tomorrow. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? No? All right.
I think it looks good. Thank you guys for all your work. And looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
I'm excited to see the results.
Yeah, me too. Always. It's always, I love this part.
We're excited to get going.
Yeah. Excellent. So I'm just keeping track of the votes in the chat. If you didn't vote, speak now or forever hold your peace on those designs.
I mailed a couple votes in.
Okay, very good.
Oh,
A couple votes, eh? When I cross-check this to the census data of who attended the meeting.
I'm just gonna say it. Option 1 looks like a disabled spider. That's all I can see now.
Okay, all right.
So we'll go with option 1 then.
Sure.
Maybe if they move the center away from the lettering, because to
See?
me, when I look
You
at the
see it
letters,
too.
it looks like Amherst is cracking.
Yeah.
Like it's a sheet of
Okay.
ice and
Yeah.
it just got hit with a hammer.
Yeah, we
And its leg fell off.
I wonder what a psychiatrist would say about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Rorschach test, isn't it? What do you see in this?
You could put another line in to Leon's comment about six-way stop and
Yeah,
unique
Yep.
to the six-way stop, right?
Yep.
there's
You don't
the
want
line
people to
kind of going
stop
along
above
Robert
them.
Angus Drive.
Sorry,
Mhm.
Hal?
I was thinking of, when you said that, I was thinking of a line going along Robert Angus Drive. But it takes away a little bit from everything, how it's all filtering in towards the middle. But one of the things, and I don't want to belabor this, but one of the things that we're so geographically centrally located in Atlantic Canada, and that's such a big asset for us. I don't want to change my vote because I want to argue with Kim a little bit, but the arrows pointing to Amherst in the service, not only the service center for where we are in the county, but also where we are in the Atlantic Canada period.
The only reason I didn't vote for those ones was the colors.
What if you put a little arrow pointing to the center of town on each of the streets, on each of the legs? So because like a lot of people won't know that they are actually the streets, but if it gets it to an arrow with connotates movement, it kind of
Yeah, because
I've
the
had-
arrows are part of all the other two designs.
I've had logo design conversations before and they never end.
Well,
Right.
that's the thing. Design by committee is not an easy thing. All right, well, we'll work with that. So we appreciate all your comments. Any other final parting thoughts, or should we finish 3 minutes early?
3 minutes early.
All right.
It is.
Go team.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Have
good-
a great rest of your evening.
Have a good council
Thank
meeting.
you.
tonight.
Enjoy
you,
your
everybody.
dinner.
Thank
Thank